There is a specific kind of moment that I hear about over and over from women in their 40s and 50s. It is not dramatic. Nobody sees it. It is the moment you realize you've been editing yourself for so long, you can barely hear your own voice anymore. Maybe it happens in a meeting. Someone asks for ideas and you have a good one, but you wait a beat too long and someone else says it first and you nod along. You smile and you think that is fine. Or you're at dinner with friends and somebody tells a story that reminds you of something from your own life and you start to tell it. And somewhere in the middle, you sense that you are taking up too much air. So you wrap it up fast and go quiet. Or maybe it's nothing that specific. Maybe it's just a feeling you carry around like a low hum in the background, not loud enough to alarm anyone, just persistent enough that you cannot quite forget it is there. The feeling that you have been responsible for everything and somewhere lost track of yourself in the process. Here is what I want you to know before we go any further. That feeling is not a symptom of decline. It is a signal. I know this because I lived it. At 52, I was managing my husband's medical practice, raising a family, doing everything I was supposed to do. And quietly in the evenings after everyone went to bed, I started writing romance novels. I did not tell anyone for months, not because I was ashamed, because I was finally doing something that was mine. And I was not ready to explain it. That is what backing yourself looks like in the beginning: small, private, and very real. I am Kylie Suarez, and this is The Joy Shift. And if you're new here, follow the show right now. Not because I will guilt you into it, but because the algorithm works against us if you don't. Every follow keeps this in front of the women who need it most. So 4 seconds, do it now. Okay, today we're going to cover three things. Three ways that midlife is asking you to back yourself, and why most accomplished women miss all three of them. I did not come to this on my own. Three different pieces of research all caught my eye, each one pointing at the same truth from a different angle. I will tell you where each came from as we go along, because this is not just my opinion. The evidence is telling a story, and I want you to hear it. A few weeks ago, I read a piece in Hello magazine. The headline stopped me. Psychology says people who feel invisible in their 40s and 50s are often on the brink of reinvention, not in decline, not past their prime, on the brink. The article drew on psychological research showing that this experience of invisibility is a signal. It is what happens when who you have been does not match who you're becoming, and the gap is getting harder to ignore. So here is what struck me. The women who feel this most acutely are often the ones who built the most visible lives. Accomplished women, women who have been responsible, capable, present, and reliable for decades, those women whose whole sense of self was built around doing things well for other people, and then one day, quietly, something shifts. The role no longer fits the way it used to. The accomplishments are real, but they're not enough. There's something underneath all of it that has not had room to breathe. And that is not failure. That is growth asking for more space. The piece used a phrase I want to give full credit to, which says, backing yourself in midlife is quietly rebellious. And that landed for me because it is true. When everyone around you has gotten used to a version of you that shows up, delivers, and does not take up too much room, changing that is a small act of rebellion. Quiet and real. The women I work with do not burn their lives down. They just stop editing themselves down. That is what backing yourself looks like. Not a declaration, a decision. Sit with this. Where are you editing yourself down right now? Where are you making yourself smaller so someone else feels more comfortable? Now, let me bring in the second piece because it connects to the first in a way I think a lot of women need to hear. A new menopause report came out of Michigan recently. The headline recommendation was something so simple, it almost sounds obvious, like help women thrive in midlife, not just survive it, not manage, not cope, thrive. The difference matters, actually. For years, the conversation around menopause has been framed almost entirely around symptoms. What are you experiencing? How severe? Where do you reduce it? And how do you reduce it? And there is a place for that. Managing health is real and very important. But when that is the only frame, it sends a message. Your body is malfunctioning. Your body is the problem. The Michigan report pushed back on that. It asks what happens when we treat midlife physical changes not as a breakdown, but as a recalibration. What if your body is not betraying you, but trying to get your attention? Here is what I know from the women I work with. The physical changes of midlife have a way of making you stop ignoring things you have been ignoring for years. Sleep changes force rest. Energy shifts force prioritization. The body, which you've been overriding for decades, starts asking questions your mind has been too busy to ask. What do you actually need? What have you been burning yourself up for? What would it mean to take care of yourself the way you take care of everyone else? That is not a medical crisis. That is a realignment. What would it look like to stop fighting your body and start getting curious about what it is asking for? The third piece came from a site called She the People, and it introduced a term I had not heard before called Meno divorce. The rise in separations that happen specifically during midlife, often during perimenopause and menopause. And I want to be clear right away, this is not an episode about whether you should leave your spouse or partner or relationship. This is not what I do and not what I'm here to say. But the phenomena is pointing at something real. And that is that midlife has a way of making every relationship ask a question it has never had to ask before. Is this relationship built on who I was or who am I becoming? Many of the closest relationships in our lives were formed around a version of us that was easier to be around, quieter, less demanding, more accommodating. When we start to back ourselves, when we start taking up more of our own space, some relationships have room for that and some don't. Figuring out which is which can feel threatening even when nobody is going anywhere. The goal is not to blow everything up. The goal is to get honest. Which relationships were built on the real you and which ones were built on a version of you that you have been quietly outgrowing? So here is where we land. 3 articles, 3 angles, 1 truth. Midlife is asking you to back yourself in your identity, in your body, in your relationships. And here is what I know about what happens if you don't. Another year passes, the feeling gets quieter but does not go away. You get better at managing it down, at finding reasons why this is not the right time, and that one day you look up and you realize you spent a decade editing yourself smaller. And the question is no longer, what do I want? The question is, who was I before I stopped asking? What you want is not too much. You have earned the right to take up space. In which area, identity, body, or relationships, is midlife asking you to back yourself right now? You probably know the answer. You probably knew it before I asked. The question is not whether you know. The question is whether you will let yourself act on it. Before I let you go, 3 things. First, if this episode felt like someone finally put words to something you have been carrying, share it. Send it to a friend who is in this season with you. A lot of women feel exactly what you feel and have never heard it named. You can change that for someone today. And second, follow the show if you have not already. Every follow tells the algorithm that this matters. That is how we reach the women who need it most. And third, here is what I have learned. You can notice this yourself. The noticing is real and it matters. But there is a second step that is very hard to take alone, and that is deciding what to do with what you notice. Because when you try to figure that out in your own head, the same voice that created the pattern is the one analyzing it. You can go in circles. That is exactly what a clarity call is for. 1 hour with me, no pressure, no pitch. We look at what you're sitting with, what is in the way, and what a real next step looks like for you specifically. The link to book is in the show notes. I'm Kiley Suarez. Knowing changes nothing. Choosing changes everything. I will see you Friday.